All right, so let me start in here. Just kind of keep in mind that other people are going to be watching this video. I guess I expect more than 2 people to show up, but it is what it is. So let's talk about the problems with VR development. So as far as VR goes, we have a couple of different tools available to us. We have the Oculus Rift. That's what we have sitting here. We have the HTC Vive. So let's call that our 2 professional level VR setups, something like that. Then we have the something called Gear VR, which is made by, I'll actually have one with me on Saturday because I'm going to be working on a project for Gear VR. So Gear VR is like these guys, but doesn't have the hand controls. It doesn't have the sensors, but it uses your cell phone. You plug your Samsung-based cell phone into the thing, and now that's your VR experience. Let's see, Google Daydream. So these are both mobile VR. Well, let's just do mobile next to it. All right, so those are both mobile. And there's actually a couple of other ones, but let's just talk about it in the context of these 4. All right, so at the high level here, we have 2 different VR headsets that both have hand controls, but the hand controls for the Vive and the hand controls for the Rift look a little different. All right, and they accomplish the task slightly differently than each other. Here in the department, we have 2 Rifts and 2 Vives, so we have 2 of each of these guys, and we'll have those at the hackathon. So one issue we'll run into is when you're doing development for these guys. So let's say your group at the hackathon happens to get assigned to a workstation that has a Rift attached to it. You would have to take a different approach natively than you would if you were assigned to a workstation that has a Vive attached to it. So we go further into this a little bit and explain that, and then we'll talk about the solution. So if we're doing HTC Vive, we would use the Steam VR SDK. All right, that's the software development kit we would use for writing stuff for Vive. If we are working on the Oculus Rift, we would use the Oculus SDK. Which you download from Oculus's website. So Oculus is a Facebook company. The Vive is the hardware is made by a company called HTC, and the software is made by Valve, the same guys who make Steam. All right. If you haven't heard of Steam, it's like where most PC gamers get their games, something like that. All right. So now we have kind of the real problem here. The Vive this becomes more of a popularity contest. The Rift was kind of the guy that made things cool first. But the problem was when the Rift was first announced and you bought a Rift, what you got was what's on this table. So you got the headset, you got 1 sensor, and it came with an Xbox controller. All right, so the whole deal was you would be using an Xbox controller for moving around in worlds and stuff like that. The hand controls weren't the thing. All right, so the Rift was cool at first, but then what happened is the HTC Vive came out. And since we're in here, let me just show you just so we can compare these things. HTC Vive. We'll just go to images. All right, so the Vive looks like this guy. So headset looks similar, but you can see how the controllers do look different. Let's see, is there one that has both of them together? No, we can look at them both. Yeah, here we go. Here's a good one. All right, so here's the 2 different headsets. The Rift is down here in the bottom. Notice the hand controls for the Rift. This is the left hand. This is the left hand up here. Notice that they are different than each other, right? But you can kind of tell they're trying to solve the same problems. But the issue here is that the Rift came out first, but did not have the hand controls. They weren't available. Then the Vive came out not that much longer after that, and it had the hand controls. The Vive also uses 2 sensors compared to the Rift initially had 1 sensor, then it went to 2 sensors, and most professional setups for the Rift use 3 sensors for something called room scale. So let me flip back and talk about room scale for a little bit because it's going to play into our development. All right, so we have something called room scale. And room scale is the idea that while in VR, we have a physical space available to us in the real world in which we can move around. So the idea is when you first set up your VR headset, you kind of have to plot out this boundary around you. So, when you're going through the tutorial, it says move all the couches out of the way, stuff like that, if you've got this in a living room. And the whole room is open. And then what you're doing is you go around with the controllers and plot out everything so that when you're in VR, when you're virtual reality, you can't see the real world. So you're walking around in here, and it's going to show you when you get close to the borders of the setup that you have. So room scale is the idea that while you're in VR, you can physically walk around your space. All right, make some sense? So my experience has been that's cool for about 20 minutes. And then you'd rather just be sitting there. That might be an old or a fat person thing. I'm not sure. But in any case, one of the big selling points for the Vive initially was this idea of room scale. And it uses two sensors, one kind of behind you and one kind of off to the front right. And it creates this, you can get a maximum about a 14-foot by 14-foot square. And now they're doing some experimental stuff where you can scale that much larger with more sensors. So there's nothing that would say we couldn't take the field house and set up a bunch of sensors in there and basically have the entire field house exist in virtual space, so that you could physically move around the entire field house and be completely in virtual world without. So the idea here would be, even with the field house being substantially bigger than 14 foot by 14 foot, it's still a limitation, right? You don't put the helmet on and automatically be able to walk around the entire world. So now you have to think about, how do I move around the world while in VR? So any way we cut it here, here, we still need to be able to move around. So we're going to have to bring some sort of mechanics into our virtual environment for us to move around. That's usually going to come in the form of the hand controls somehow. So possible options for this are teleportation, kind of a drive mechanic, where you use the joystick and just drive into the world. Some other ways you can do it, but let's call those our two maybe big ones. Teleportation becomes very quick because you just point where you want to go and it zips you there. All right, and so you lose kind of some reality because now you're able to cover a whole bunch of ground very quickly. But then again, it's also convenient because you can create a virtual space that then becomes, if I'm sitting here, so this is kind of, if we move forward to this idea of, how many of you have heard of mixed reality? Heard the name before? All right, so just to kind of bring all this stuff together here, this is virtual reality where we have a headset that you can't see out of and it uses some sensors. Then you have augmented reality. So let's throw that on another slide. How many of you have heard of augmented reality? Okay, what's that guy? What's augmented reality?
Well, keep everything right. You will bring the virtual into the virtual.
Okay, so really, Microsoft has a thing called the HoloLens, which is their we have one here in the department. So let's call that professional augmented reality. But practical augmented reality we're seeing now is really through cell phones. Right, so iOS 11 has this thing called AR Kit for it. If you're an Android user, they have something called AR Core. call them competitors. The whole idea is that you basically hold your phone up, you write an app that does this augmented reality thing, and you hold your phone up and it uses the camera. So let's say we wanted to know if like a big screen TV fit on the wall over there. We would hold it up and we can tap on the app and say, oh, I want to place a big screen TV there. And it would place it on that surface, and I can change the size of the TV to see how big of a TV would fit on that space and how would it look in this room. Just as a quick example of augmented reality. So the entire time I'm working with my real reality, right? But I'm augmenting it with stuff, and the way I'm seeing the augmented elements are through my phone lens. With the HoloLens, the way I'm seeing the augmented stuff, I'm wearing this headset thing, and I'm seeing out into the real world, but then it has like a little screen in there where it'll paint stuff on top of my reality. So imagine it's kind of like a phone strapped to your face, something like that. More elegant than that, but along those lines. All right, so that's augmented reality. Well, now Microsoft has thrown a little bit of a curveball here where they have this thing called mixed reality. So your initial guess would be that it's kind of half and half, right? Augmented reality versus virtual reality. Then we have this mixed reality. Maybe that's kind of both. The reality is, I keep using reality. The reality is this is more like VR with a goal of dropping the sensors. So we have a mixed reality. I have a developer mixed reality helmet. I should have brought it with me tonight, but it's not a big deal. It looks a lot like this Vive does. In fact, actually, let me just open another tab here. Find the HP one. Yeah, this will be good enough. All right, so this is actually the one I have. So it's a Hewlett-Packard one. One neat thing about it that we'll talk about here in a little bit is you see how the front of it is on like this hinge here, so you can actually lift it up like this. Because and you'll see this at the hackathon, one kind of downside of VR development is if you're testing and when you get to the point where you're testing something that's very VR dependent, you're going to, in order to test it, you'll have to hit play, put the helmet on, and test it. That's going to be cool for the first 2 or 3 times, and all of a sudden pull that helmet on and off and on and off and on and off. It's going to get real tiring. So this is kind of a cool idea where, in between sessions, you keep the helmet on, but you just flip it up. So I think you're going to actually start seeing that thing built into the Rift and the Vive before too long. But notice here that on the front, you have 2 little, those are actually cameras. If you look at the front of the Vive and the Rift, they don't have those. Although, you see this little guy right here on the Vive? That actually is a camera. It's a pass-through camera. They don't really use it for anything else other than you can go into pass-through mode if you're, which allows you to sort of kind of navigate around your world. Like, if you had to open a door for somebody or something like that. I mean, this is not like a replacement for seeing the real world. It's like a just-in-case type thing. Maybe they had some other ideas for it initially, but it never turned into that. So really the goal of mixed reality is they're using these cameras to replace the need for these sensors. So these are the 2 sensors for the Vive here, the sensors for the Rifts, these guys. So one of the issues here you saw when we first came into the classroom tonight, I had to spend several minutes hooking this stuff up, and it actually isn't even completely hooked up yet. We're just going to hope it's set up enough that it'll work okay, because you kind of have to have it tuned for the room you're in, because the second you move one of these sensors, it's no longer in balance or something like that. So it's one of those things that if you have it in a certain room in your house, you set it up once, then you're good. You just keep using it in that room, but they're not real portable from the perspective of you got to sort of reset it up every place you go. And it's 5 minutes. It's not like the end of the world, but it's a thing. Where with the mixed reality things, because they have the cameras on them, setup is nothing, right? It can see the world around it. If you're going to be doing something where you're actually going to get up and move around, because they do support room scale, then you actually do need to set up your barrier wherever you're at, but you just walk the helmet around. Takes 30 seconds and you're done. But with that, you then give up a little bit of accuracy, at least in the current revision of these. In fact, the mixed reality stuff isn't even out. Microsoft's trying to ship it for, probably pretty close, maybe the end of this month, something like that, kind of a holiday type thing. But But it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with the mixed reality stuff in terms of practical applications. Because right now, the mixed reality applications, Microsoft's not really angling towards gaming and things like that, which I think is actually good. How many of you, when you hear about virtual reality, the first thing that pops into your mind might be something along the line of games? Is that a relatively true thing? That is, in terms of the big scheme of things, that's probably the least impressive thing of VR. Is the least future. I don't think we're going to see games as the future of VR. I think we'll see a lot of other things as the futures of VR. Why do you think it came out for games first?
Incentive?
Okay, in what way?
Want to experience.
Well, gamers might be the ones more willing to try it, right? Okay, what do you think?
I think it might be more like along the lines of why the Wii was made. Game developers were like, we have to find something for them to try. And
so I guess I blanket this by saying I obviously don't know the exact answer, but I have a pretty good speculation. I feel pretty confident in this, just because seeing the new technologies come out over the years. PC gamers would fall into this category of called enthusiasts, PC enthusiasts. So they're the ones who will spend $1,000 on a graphics card. They're the ones that want to try the latest, greatest, bleeding edge, whatever tech stuff is out there. Now, one thing we'll throw out there is VR is extremely dependent on graphics cards. One of the things with mixed reality, Microsoft's goal is to be less dependent on graphics cards. But VR, chances are, so out of this crowd, how many of you know what kind of GPUs you have in your machine at home?
No.
Yeah, I don't want to say it out loud. But would you say that most non-gamers, they have a graphics card, right? They don't necessarily know what graphics card they have in their machine. Bottom line is, if you don't know what graphics card you have in your computer, you probably can't run VR because it's going to be a graphics card people have heard of that you have to have. So for those of you who are gamers, bare minimum for VR is an NVIDIA GTX 1060. 1070 is probably more of the bare minimum. 1080 would be great. We're talking $400, $500, $600 graphics cards. And that's now after they've dropped in price, right? The 1080. I have my machine at home. I have a GTX 1080 Ti, and that's like an $800 graphics card now. But it used to be like $1,400 when it was called the Titan X. So not cheap stuff, right? So if you have this technology that requires this crazy horsepower, who has that horsepower? The PC enthusiasts, the gamers. Who's going to give this new technology a shot at trying it? Those PC gamers. Until we can bring so that gets the technology, which starts off very expensive. The Rift was originally $600 without the hand controls. The Vive was originally $800 with the hand controls. Now the Vive has dropped to $600. The Rift has dropped to $400. Microsoft is targeting an even lower price point for the mixed reality stuff. So we're starting to see those things drop into the realm of affordable, right? And if we start taking away some of the requirement for the GPU stuff, because really that high requirement for the GPUs has to do with the gaming side of it. Because when we think about games, we're thinking about, we want to drive this game for VR, they say we need to drive at 90 frames a second per eye, because we have two monitors, right? Okay, so inside this thing, we have two monitors, one for your left eye, one for your right eye. And we got to drive those guys at 90 frames a second. Why 90 frames a second? That's the kind of the goal in VR. So you don't get motion sickness, right? So, because there are people who, it's pretty common. It'll happen on Saturday. Somebody is not going to like VR. They won't be the tester anymore. They're going to put it on. They're going to say, I'm dizzy. And they won't. It's not right for them. The real killer applications for VR deal with multimedia, deal with home entertainment. And actually, this is where I think that the mobile VR is going to be kind of where things take over now. Oculus is getting ready. They're coming out with this thing called the Oculus Go. I misspelled it, but it'll probably pop up. So this is the Oculus Go. And earlier I mentioned something called the Gear VR. Okay, here's Gear VR. Gear VR, Oculus Go, same thing.
And there's Google's Pixel VR?
Google's Daydream is what it's called. But talking about this, though, these are the same thing with one exception. Gear VR requires a Samsung phone. Plug it into it, now you have an Oculus Go. Make sense? Oculus Go isn't out yet, but the price point they're trying to hit with it is about $200. And I have a Samsung smartphone, and I'll still get an Oculus Go because I don't like having to take my case off to slap my phone into the VR thing. I'd rather just have the dedicated home VR they just pick up and put on, and when I'm done, I take it off. That'll make my life easier.
So will it run on its own operation system?
It runs Oculus Home, same thing as this runs, which is it's legit. I'll bring some of these things in with me. I'll do just some demo stuff at the hackathon, so you can try out all these things. But the point is that if we think of, I really think mobile VR is making its comeback. This stuff was more of gaming. That's where the hand controls really come in and stuff like that. It's not that the hand controls are useless. In fact, they add a lot of cool factor to it. Certain applications are going to require the hand controls. But in terms of killer applications, in terms of the time when grandma's going to have VR, it's for home entertainment. How many of you watch Netflix? Most of us watch Netflix or some streaming shows, right? How big of a TV do you have at your house? You watch Netflix on? Watching your laptop screen? Okay. What's the biggest TV we have in here? You have 50-inch TV? 55, okay. What do you got 55 beat? Okay, so 55-inch TV is what size TV do you think I watch Netflix on at my house? Well, how huge? Oh, this? I wouldn't watch it on this small of a TV.
No, I mean, you use the VR.
Yeah, I watch it on a 100-foot screen.
Yeah, that's much bigger.
I'll watch it on a movie screen.
Yeah.
Oh, using VR.
With VR.
Well, isn't that getting the sweaty in your arms? Doesn't?
A lot less heat when you're doing just video.
Oh.
Where does all the sweat come from? When after somebody's been playing Robo Recall or something like that on a headset, we wipe it down with we wipe it down with something. So whatever. But the point is, it's like wet, right? Why? Well, because they've been exercising. And also, when you're driving this at 90 frames a second with a video game, this is giving off heat. You're just watching a show. That's way less hard on your back. If you're on your cell phone and you're watching Netflix, you're watching YouTube for 20 minutes. That doesn't kill your battery very much. What kills your battery is playing some video game on your phone for 20 minutes. Because it's doing a lot of processing, hitting the GPU really hard, all this stuff. Video is all pre-rendered. It's just showing pictures. It's easy. So with VR, you can sit inside of a broom closet and watch Netflix on a 100-foot screen. That type of thing is the killer application for VR. But then just attach that, pick your favorite sport. If you're a Packers fan, once Rodgers comes back, what if you could watch the Packers game from the perspective of Aaron Rodgers? Put a little camera on his helmet, a 360-degree camera, and you put your helmet on, and you are Aaron Rodgers. These are realities. These are going to be realities soon. It's already a reality for a lot of things. They're doing it in the NFL. They're doing it in the Major League Baseball. They're doing it in the NBA, where you can put the headset on. I guess keep bugging me. I might regret that. You put the headset on and you can pick, let's say you want to watch an NBA game, and there's certain arenas that are beta testing this. You can pick one of 15 seats. Anywhere in the arena, you could sit on the bench. You could be at half court. You could be up in the rafters. You can pick what perspective you want to watch the game from. And when you turn your head, it's as if you were sitting there moving your head, because it's a 360-degree camera that they effectively put in that seat. And they could sell that seat to you over and over and over again, because it's gathering all the data anyways. It doesn't matter if you have 300 people all viewing from that seat's perspective. The camera is not moving. The camera is stationary, but can see in 360 degrees. So whoever has the headset can decide how they want to look. They can turn around, look at the people behind them, all that stuff. That's available today. These are the killer applications for VR. It's the home entertainment stuff. Okay, but now we're going to get some more specific applications of VR that are going to be more practical stuff. Where Microsoft wants to go with mixed reality. And this is going to be interesting because a thing for Microsoft is going to be this idea. Well, Microsoft wants you to use Windows 10 while in VR. That's what they want you to do. They want you to put the helmet on, and now you don't even need a computer screen. So, I'm assuming at some point they're going to kind of manage this off of either their Surface tablets, or maybe even just a new Microsoft phone type thing, where it's like a miniature tablet where your screen is actually the VR headset. And your desktop, when we think about a normal desktop on your computer, it's a 2D space, right? You minimize windows, whatever. Your desktop in mixed reality, when you put the headset on, and I'll bring it in with me while I'll do a demo at the Hackathon so people can check it out. Your desktop is a house. So you're at home, your Microsoft home. And you teleport around this house, and you can set pin applications on walls in different areas of the house. If you want to watch a movie, you go downstairs to your theater. That's where your theater is. It has a 100-foot screen. That's where you watch your movies. So you're moving around the house. Now, when I say this, it kind of sounds like that might be kind of cool, but at the same time, you're like, is that really better? Yeah. Productivity is the big issue. We kind of think of keyboards as being boring, but they also work. So it's a same thing with the mice, a mouse. Yeah, nobody's like super impressed by a mouse, right? But they work. I think replacing the mouse in VR will be significant, because you could actually still use a real mouse. Give it some kind of hand control or something. I think that's doable. I think that's not the issue. It's the keyboard input. So we haven't replaced typing yet. And, I've built some stuff in VR for like mimicking a keyboard, but you basically have to treat it like it's a drum set. So you build this kind of big keyboard that has easy things to hit. And on your hand controls, you put like little hooks off the end of them. So you almost have little tappers. So that's how you type. Okay. Even if you get good at that, you're still going to be slower than typing on a keyboard.
Voice recognition.
Yeah, but okay. So voice recognition. Well, I mean, for obvious reasons. But, so voice recognition is great for certain applications, but voice recognition is not going to work anytime soon for like programming, right? So it's going to be domain specific for what we're going to be able to use that stuff for. So I don't think keyboards are going away anytime soon, but that's going to be a really interesting area of VR for the next, let's call it 3 years, 4 years, is coming up with new input methods in VR. Because right now we're almost kind of past that initial cool factor, because we're, the gaming world is no longer overly impressed with VR. We've made the impact there. The GPUs have been there. We have a bunch of these VR stuff out there. So now you have some people that, oh yeah, I like the VR games. Other people like, I'd rather just sit on the couch and veg, and just play the game on the TV. Now, because it's become more mainstream, where, I gave a presentation at my church not that long ago on VR, and most of the people there, older folks, had heard of VR. Didn't necessarily know really what it was, but that the name had made enough of an impact in society that they had heard of it. They kind of knew what was going on. And then when you start talking to them about home entertainment and watching movies, from Aaron Rodgers' perspective, or maybe from the Packers sideline, that kind of stuff, that's meaningful to them because that's their speed, right? Grandpa's not playing Robo Recall. I do have a video of my dad playing it, and that was funny, but it was like a 10-minute little thing. So the reality is that I think we're starting to move towards more mainstream VR stuff, and I really think that's where mobile VR is going to kind of come back with a vengeance. Because mobile VR is sort of kind of where it all started. How many of you have heard of Google Cardboard? Yeah, so Google Cardboard looks like this. It's literally cardboard. So the idea was like, oh, you want to try some virtual reality stuff? Give it a little test. Here's this kit you could buy from Google, and then a whole bunch of other people made these things. It was like $5 or $7, cheap. Didn't cost very much. It came with little instructions. You fold it all up, and it has pieces of tape. You close it. And then this little front part here, you put your phone in here with the screen facing towards these eye holes. You open up an app that's Google Cardboard compliant, and you hold the thing up to your face. VR. And it uses the accelerometers and stuff inside of the phone for when you look around. It detects that you've looked in different directions and all that stuff. So a really cheap way to try VR. Now, that's not comfortable. You're not going to want to stay in Google Cardboard for 4 hours. Okay, but for 5 or 10 minutes, actually the first time I used Google Cardboard was probably about a 2-hour thing of trying. You download the 50 different apps that say they're Google Cardboard compatible. The roller coasters, all the roller coasters they're the kind of the first thing you try on any of the VR devices, I guess. Just download a virtual roller coasters. Roller coasters I would go on in VR that would never go on in real life. So easy in VR. You just feel like you're tough. You like roller coasters?
No, I actually like the space thingy. When you travel between planets and stuff, like clicking in that magnet.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And a planet, you just pull that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I was never a fan of roller coasters in real life. But in VR, I'm a pro. All the ones that go upside down, I fitted them. I don't fit them in real life. So in any case, this is kind of where it started, and now we've come kind of full circle. Microsoft wants you to use your PC in VR. I don't know where that's going to go, but I think clearly home entertainment is where VR is going, and difference. And home entertainment's huge, right? If nothing else, humans are lazy. We like sitting around and watching movies. So I think that's really where things are going to go. Now, let's rein it back in here, just so we can make some headway. So when we come full circle, we're looking at all these different options for VR. So we have the Vive, we have the Rift, this idea of room scale, which now you can kind of move around your physical space, but kind of maybe who cares? Certain applications that might play into it. But if we're talking about the killer application of VR being, at least in its current form, being home entertainment, you don't need to move around, right? You sit on the couch, you put the headset on, you're good. You don't need room scale. You know that you're not going to fall over while sitting on the couch. You're not going to bump into a chair while sitting on the chair. Yeah, you just need to be able to move your head, right? If anything else, depending on what you're watching, for instance, if you're watching a Packers game from the perspective of Aaron Rodgers, you probably don't need to look behind you, because you're basically, he's the head, so he's turning. So you're just seeing whatever he's seeing, which would probably be cool for about 15, 20 seconds, and then you probably start throwing. It's probably going to be terrible. But the point is that some virtual reality situations, you want to be on kind of a swivel chair like this, where you can turn all the way around, so you don't have to get up and turn around. That way you can see everything around you. But other ones, if you're just needing to look side to side or up and down, you can be stationary. Not a big deal. Augmented reality, we're going to see a lot of with this in the next year. We'll have to see where the app developers go with augmented reality, but I don't think it's a real competitor to VR. It's solving a different problem. Mixed reality could be kind of cool because, well, first of all, I really think the big thing is going to be in mobile VR over the next 2 years, because everybody has a smartphone, and if we can get these headsets into people's hands for not a lot of money, that's going to open up the doors for VR, because now you don't have to have this killer computer and all this other stuff. But at the very least, Microsoft's move towards mixed reality does move us in the direction of needing lower hardware requirements, lower upfront cost. Mixed reality helmets like $300 with the hand controls out the door. You don't need a great computer in order to drive it. Things like that. So we'll have to see where that ends up going. But as we can see, we have all these different options. But when we develop for these, wouldn't you imagine that something that gets developed for the Gear VR and something that gets developed for the Google Hangout and something that gets developed for mixed reality would all kind of maybe be the same kinds of things? I mean, you might have the same application in all three of those, just like you have the same application on Xbox and PlayStation. Make sense? So from a developer perspective, when we're writing stuff, we'd like to be able to target all of these different platforms at the same time. Now, there's obviously some limitations. Certain platforms have the hand controls, certain ones don't. So you might need to change how your controls work in that particular experience, whether you're going to support hand controls or not. But if you're going to write something that doesn't require hand controls or requires, a kind of a minimalistic hand control type thing, and you want to target a bunch of headsets, it would be nice to be able to write that one time and have it figure out which headset you're targeting versus having to write it one time for the Rift, one time for the Vive, one time for the Gear VR, for Google Daydream, so on and so forth. So the tool we're going to use is a tool called Unity. All right, so Unity is a 3D game engine with a goal of write once, run anywhere. So if you implement things using Unity's core abilities, you can deploy to iOS, to Android, to PlayStation, to Xbox, to PC, to Mac. You can write your game one time and deploy to all those different platforms without any changes, as long as you use the core Unity constructs. Okay, you might have to consider inputs and things like that for the different platforms slightly, but generally speaking, you can deploy to any of them. Well, now what we're trying to do is we're trying to leverage Unity. So we go to VR development. We're going to leverage Unity to deploy for the different VR headsets. Now this is where things get more interesting, because now we're not using the built-in core Unity components. Instead, we're bringing in external tools that are Unity compatible into Unity for developing for our VR headsets. Well, if we go this route, well, we can say, well, we're going to develop for the Vive using Steam VR SDK. We're going to develop for the Rift using Oculus SDK. We're going to develop for the Gear VR also using the Oculus SDK, but it's actually a different SDK for the Gear. We're going to develop for Google Daydream. And I don't actually know what the name of their SDK is, but let's just call it the Google SDK. I think they have a name for it. And there's a couple other ones we can develop for. Mixed reality. Microsoft has a beta version of the Unity plugin for mixed reality as well. So now if you want to write it for the Vive, you got to use that VR. You're that SDK. You're using all these different tools for each individual thing. It would be nicer for us to be able to write it one way and have it deploy to all these other things. So, and this is actually something I just recently adopted, probably about maybe a month ago. Historically, what I've used is Steam VR, and Steam VR has support for the Rift. So we'll say Steam VR 100% supports the Vive, and we'll call it 80% supports the Rift. So you can pretty much do everything for both, but you're not getting optimized Rift stuff using Steam VR to code for the Rift. You'd be better off using Oculus when you do Rift stuff and using Steam VR for the Vive stuff. Now, the solution we do use, though, that I'm going to show you here, does rely on you understanding that the Rift is supported by Steam VR. It's a kind of an important piece of this. So what I use now is something called VRTK. It's the Virtual Reality Toolkit. So VRTK was a project for Unity that translates VR stuff from a standard to each individual platform. So when we write our experiences, we'll write them in terms of VRTK. And then VRTK will figure out which headset we have plugged in, and it will convert the VRTK way of doing that to Rift or to Vive or to Gear VR. We have to do some initial setup. We have to bring all those SDKs in, but we're not rating it for those SDKs. VRTK has done that. Let's kind of show a picture of that. All right, so we can say we have Steam VR. We have the Oculus SDK. Let's just leave it at that for right now. We have these two things. Then we have VRTK that lives on top of that. And then when we develop, for VRTK. And then we let VRTK know how to interface with Steam VR for the Vive. And how to interface with Oculus SDK for the Rift. So when we launch our application, it's going to bring up VRTK, and VRTK is going to go through a list of the SDKs in a certain order. So the first one it's going to check is the Oculus SDK to see if you have a compatible headset on, plugged into the machine for the Oculus SDK. It's going to check that one first. We're going to set it up to check that one first because it'll get a false positive with Steam VR. If it checks Steam VR first, Steam VR will say, yeah, I can drive this guy. I can drive the Rift, even though I'm not driving it totally efficiently. So we'll check Oculus SDK first, which only knows how to drive the Rift, cannot drive the Vive. If it fails, we probably have a Vive plugged in. Then it'll jump over and try Steam VR, which will accept for the Vive. If 5 minutes later you unplug the Vive, you hook the Rift up, and you launch the exact same game, they'll try to launch the SDKs again, and it'll try the Oculus one. It'll succeed because now we have a Rift plugged in, and it'll be running the Oculus SDK this time. But you didn't have to change any of your coding because you've written everything in terms of VRTK. Make sense? Now, there's actually a third thing, and it's pretty, I'm going to say ghetto, but it will help you at least a little bit. VRTK also comes with a virtual reality emulator or a simulator. Okay, so if everything else fails, your game will still launch. And it will bring you into this into the world as if you are this VR emulator where it pretends you are a Rift or a Vive. It kind of shows your little hand controls. And, I mean, it's not how you want to write VR. But it's better than if you're on a machine and you're working on some VR stuff that doesn't require like precise hand controls and things like that. You want to test and I have to keep putting the helmet on and off. The emulator might be a reasonable enough solution. It's not good, but it's something. Make sense? So, but again, you can develop for VRTK. You do all your development in terms of VRTK. When you want to pick something up, you do it the VRTK way. And then VRTK figures out how to accomplish the same thing on the different platforms. All right, questions about any of that stuff?
Is there any efficiency drop you are using VRTK?
Well, I would say, I don't know for sure. My feeling is probably not, or at least not very much, because at the end of the day, it uses the underlying SDK.
It's not the same thing as like running in a virtual machine.
No, because it's a selection switch.
Okay.
So you go in and it figures out which one is it going to use to solve all your problems. Ultimately,
so it picks the right API.
Yeah. Correct. So VRTK has solved the problems, those common VR problems, 3 different ways. It solved it the Steam VR way. It solved it the Oculus SDK way, and it solved it the VR emulator way. Then you just have to solve it one way, the VRTK way, and then it translates over to those for you. There may be a little bit of an efficiency drop. I don't think it's drastic.
Benefits more.
Big time. Big time. Yeah. So in any case, and this guy's become mainstream enough now where I'm like comfortable like introducing it as like a industry standard tool. Big companies are using it now. Where before you would have, similar to the mobile application development, you would have places writing native apps for iOS and native apps for Android.
It's open source.
It's open source. Yep. All right. So let's kind of jump in and see how this works. So I'm going to open up this tool called Unity, just to show you where you can download it. I'll put links up on Slack as well. But it's unity3d.com. And this is for Mac or for PC. So, you download the latest version and click on Get Unity. It's free. Just get the personal version of it. And that'll be the same tool we're using here. We're going to have it installed on a bunch of machines for the hackathon, and each team will also have a dedicated workstation assigned to the team that has either a Vive or a Rift attached to it for that team, and that'll be like a good computer with a good graphics card, so you'll have like kind of your testing machine. But you'll see that you can actually work on stuff even on your laptops or things like that, at least if you're assigned like a certain aspect of the VR game. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to launch Unity. That is the beta they had on here. Okay, I'm going to actually create a new one here just so you, so we're going to call this guy VR Bootcamp. Yeah, I'll just throw this on the desktop. You'll choose 3D. That should be the default one. I'll go ahead and say create project. Okay, so when you first come into Unity, it looks like this, and I'm going to give you a little crash course in Unity here in a little bit, but let me do the some of the VR stuff first, because I know a few of you have to leave early and have seen the Unity, the basic Unity stuff, not necessarily 3D Unity, but the basic Unity stuff, and need to really be introduced to the VR stuff. So built into Unity is this thing called the Asset Store. Now, VRTK, there's a bunch of tutorials for it out there. You can watch videos if you want to learn about it and things like that. And I'll link some of them actually I'll put it up on Slack. So you can watch some of those videos if you're interested in it before the hackathon. But just do a search in here for VRTK. So when you go to VRTK, they say there's two different ways you can get this project. You can get it from the asset store, or you can get it from their GitHub thing. They say that they prefer the GitHub one because it's the most up to date or whatever. I would go the other direction because this is the most convenient. Chances are you're not going to need the little tiny feature that they've just added, but once you get that far where you might have an opinion, then maybe you would know. But it's called VRTK. So down here at the bottom, it says VRTK looks like this flying pig dude. So click on that. Now, you'll have to have a Unity account for this, but when you first install Unity, you'll create one. It's free. So any of these things, some things on Unity cost money on the asset store, so you have to pay for them. Just until you know what you're doing, just don't. You won't associate a credit card with it, so you won't like accidentally buy something, In any case, this would say, it probably would have said download because it was free. I've already downloaded it, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit import. And this is going to bring it into this project. So think of, so Unity is a collection of scenes. So by default, we have this main scene that's available to us. When I bring this VRTK library into my Unity project, it's going to put it into this folder called the assets folder. That makes it available to my entire project. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit import. And then we're going to look at some of the sample scenes here. Okay, so that's finished. There's 3 tabs up here. So one's asset store, one's game, one's scene. So scene is the one we do our development in. I'm actually just going to go down to our assets folder. I'm going to double click on this guy. I'm going to go into some of the example scenes. So I'll put up examples. Let's see, that's a VR player area. Let's just for a starting point, let's do basic teleporter. So I'm going to open up this sample scene. All right, so we have this thing that looks like this that they've built with primitives, and I'll show you kind of how to build some stuff like this for those of you who've never been introduced to Unity or haven't done 3D stuff in Unity. So a couple of you I know are in the 275 class where we've done stuff with like sprites, where with 3D stuff we have primitives. So we have cubes and spheres and things like that that we can draw out. So I actually think it's easier, but it is what it is. All right, so in any case, if we look up here, we have something in our scene here called the VRTK SDK Manager. This guy is the magic sauce that makes VRTK work. So we're seeing one that's already built into a scene here, so you might actually just want to steal this one and bring it into your scene. Okay, you can go through some tutorial videos for doing it yourself, but I'm going to kind of walk through and show you kind of how this guy works. So this guy, so when you think about your scene in Unity, it's a collection of game objects. Okay, where a game object is anything that lives in the scene. So all these guys at some level are game objects. And at the most generic sense, a game object is a transform. That is a position in XYZ space and a rotation in XYZ space and a scale in XYZ space. It's a transform. It just talks about where the dude is, how he's twisted, and how big he is relative to his default size. Okay, so every game object is that at its most basic level. So they've created an empty game object here called VRTK SDK Manager. And then what they did is they attached this script to it. And this comes with VRTK. It's the VRTK SDK Manager script. And I'm going to, for those of you who haven't done anything with Unity, I'll give you a crash course on the script stuff kind of at the end. So let me kind of going backwards. I'm showing you VR stuff first. I'll show you how to use Unity a little bit second. So that's really mostly just for you, Charlie. That's okay. Charlie and I will have fun for a little bit. It'll be fine. We like hanging out. I like Charlie, right? You like me? Yeah, see, no problem. We're better off without you. All right. So in any case, we've attached this script to this dude, and he's already set up. And notice that we also attached the left controller and the right controller here to these. Don't worry about that either. But under setups, notice the order here. This was the thing I was talking to you about before. So the first thing that's in our order here is the Daydream VR. Then it's the Oculus. Then it's the Zimmerse. Then it's Steam VR. Then it's the simulator. Okay, now we have a Rift hooked up to the machine here. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and hit play, and we're going to see it's going to launch the simulator, because the very last thing here is the simulator for this guy. So when I launch this guy, it's going to try to do its thing, and the simulator popped up. All right, so this is pretending like I'm using, yep, and those are my hand controls, the red and green dot there. So this is pretending like I'm using the simulator, even though I have a Rift hooked up. Why is that? Well, even though this VRTK SDK manager knows how to handle the Rift, it currently does not have the SDK. I didn't download the SDK for the Rift. So now we got to go do that. So I'm going to show you where to get that. So come on here, and we're going to go Oculus Rift SDK. So we'll go to Oculus Developer Center, and we're going to be, let's see, where is it? We're going to be under Develop, Downloads. Then for Unity, notice they have things for Unity, Unreal Engine, which is like a Unity competitor, several other things. So let's just do Unity. So it's going to take me into here. So here's the core packages for Unity. So, you sure? Really? I was tricking you. I clicked here. Yeah, this is right. Oh, you thought I clicked down here?
Oh no, I just.
Oh, from the beginning is developer.oculus.com. I went to downloads. So this guy under develop. And then I clicked on Unity. And I'll put these downloads up. We'll have them available so you don't have to download them off the. So we need several different things here. So there's a core package, and then there's an avatar package, and there's a platform package. So we're going to actually need all three of these. The core package says, how do I talk to Oculus stuff? The platform package knows how to specifically talk to the Rift. The avatar package knows about the Rift's hand controls. Make sense? So I'm going to go ahead and download Oculus Utilities for Unity. I'll say I read this, agree, blah, blah, blah. So I'll get that guy downloading. It's like 21 megabytes, not that big. Now I'm going to grab the platform SDK. Pretty similar. That was 9.7 megabytes. And then finally, the avatar SDK. That was 2.5 megabytes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, actually I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to go to my downloads folder where all that stuff is. All right, now I actually already have several of those things. I had already downloaded them and unzipped them. So what you would do is you'd go to your avatar SDK, you'd right click on it, say extract all. It'll extract it to this folder, and that'll give you this folder here, avatar SDK, blah, blah, blah. All right, and here's the Unity utilities, and here's the platform. Those are the three things. Okay, so we've downloaded them, we've unzipped them. Now we want to bring them into our Unity project. So I'm going to go just back to my assets folder. I'm going to right click in here. I'm going to say import package, custom package. And I'll go to my downloads. And I'm going to go ahead and let's just do an order. So we'll do OVR platform SDK. Actually, let's do Unity utilities. Oculus utilities. So here's what a package looks like, Unity package file. So just click on that dude, hit open. And then it says this is all the crap I'm going to bring in. Just say import. Now, one of the steps here takes a few minutes to finish running. Let's see. Oculus Utilities has detected that a newer version of the OVR plugin is available. Using the newest version recommended. Do you want to enable it? Let's say yes. Okay, so it downloaded the updated version, wants me to restart Unity, so I'll go ahead and do that. So this guy keeps itself up to date, but after you originally download it. Okay, so now I have OVR. So that's the base package for, I'm going to say don't save. All right, so this is the base package for Oculus. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to import another thing. So I'm going to import package, custom package. We go back to downloads. Let's go ahead and bring the platform in. You can do these in any order that you want. So I'll choose Unity, and here's Oculus platform.
Import all three.
Yeah, we're going to need all three of them. I'm importing them in the order in which they know about each other. So platform knows about Oculus utilities. Avatar knows about platform. I don't think there's an issue because the way Unity works is if it's looking for something it can't find, it just is grayed out until it finds it. So it doesn't break it. All right, so now I have Oculus platform. Lastly, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to import custom package. And we're going to get Avatar for Unity. Bring that in. So it's telling me this uses some obsolete APIs, blah, 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 because some older stuff. Just say I made a backup. Go ahead.
After that, it'll give you access to the.
Now it'll know how to talk to a Rift.
And with let's just say you're not using the Rift, you're using something else. So we're gonna have to download.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, this must be the part that it takes a couple minutes for this guy to finish cooking. So it's the avatar piece. So actually what I'll do, hit this here. And I'll put up the link to this so you'll be able to finish watching it. All right, so now that this guy is done importing the stuff, I'm going to go ahead and, well, just real quick, let me go up to the VRTK SDK manager. Just click on that guy. Notice now that Oculus VR is lit up. It wasn't before, right? So now if I go ahead and I hit play. Oh. See my hands here?
Yep.
You see me still?
Yeah, we see you tele.
Yeah, it's teleporting around.
So is that where you said the room scale, that the edge?
Well, room scale would be this part of it. Let me get kind of close to this guy. So you see how I could actually walk over and get closer to him?
Yeah.
That's room scale. Is that even though I can teleport around and get close to this thing, I can actually physically move in my space to get closer to it. I'm physically moving. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
That's room scale. You guys want to come try this?
Sure.
Just see what it's like? Charlie, don't break this.
I think you grabbed it in the wrong.
Okay. This is the left hand. And then I think it's this button for you hit the push the joystick down. I don't remember the control. That's the thumbstick. Yeah, that guy. See that? See, I just push. This is a button. The thumbstick. That guy's a button. So aim it where you want it to go. Yeah, there you go. Got it.
Yeah.
You only have to use one, but you can use both if you want. Whatever makes you happy.
Are you inside there?
You getting the hang of it now?
Yeah.
All right, because for a while there, you were really sucking.
I see the ball here.
Yeah, that's a ball.
Yeah.
How do you?
Joystick? Hey, you're worse than Charlie. Okay, so this guy's a button, right?
Oh, it's
Yeah. So
why is it blurry? Oh, my eyes blurry.
um,
Oh yeah, my eyes blurry.
yeah, you have Velcro on it to adjust to get it the right way. No.
Oh.
Cool. I'll tell you what, it is so much better being able to just put this thing on and off without glasses.
Oh yeah.
Don't have contacts in.
Do you have to like? Does it adjust to your?
These no. The Gear VR does.
Oh.
So the Gear VR I could wear without glasses before, because it has an adjuster thing for like almost dial in your prescription. So I could do that before,
Let's
but
do a laser thing. What does that work?
it's not going to help me with because I have 3 issues.
Oh.
I wear trifocals. I have what's called astigmatism, which is fairly common. It's just, and then I also have prisms in both lenses, and I haven't been able to do that with contacts until now. There's something. My eyes are healthy. It's not like major issues. I grew up during the CRT time, so I'm staring at computer. Yeah, no. Yeah.
Right eye. I see you like when you were standing there.
Yeah.
I see you blurry with my right eye.
Okay.
And I went to the doctor and told you like, well, your left eye is dominant, so your right eye is just.
Lazy, anyways. Okay. Huh.
But I don't know, that causing me sometimes headaches because
Mm-hmm.
I had to like. Focus.
Yeah. Yeah. So far, I'm liking the contacts. I think I'm actually.
Wearing contacts.
I have contacts now. They just came out with ones that I can wear. So I might need to get readers though, because when I spend a lot of time on computers, like things get close-up stuff is not quite as good as it used to be. That might even be better though, because then I can get the really zoom ones. So like when I'm helping students, I'm standing over their shoulders, I'll be able to see the little text. That's just like a triple zoom, 300 times zoom. It's like a microscope.
You will be a cyborg soon.
Seriously. But my distance vision, I can see way better.
Oh, really?
Oh, way better. I can read stuff over there I could not have read with my glasses.
Yeah, my right eye wanted
Yeah, so
that.
I'm.
It freaked me out. One eye, just one eye.
Well, one of my eyes is worse than the other. I think it's pretty normal. Yeah, I think everybody has a good eye and a bad eye. Like my right eye is my better eye. My left eye is junk. it's just for show. It's just for show. All right, so now we could have actually, let me do this. So I'm going to go ahead just to show you as an example. I'm going to go to the asset store and I'm going to grab Steam VR. Okay, so we don't need to go out to Steam's website to get his Oculus. We had to go off-site to get their stuff. But Steam VR is available right here in the asset store. And this guy supports both the Vive and the Rift, but it does not support the Rift anywhere near as well as it supports the Vive, because this is made for the Vive. Okay? So I'll go ahead and import this guy.
And they also have competition.
But this is really showing the problem, our current issue.
Yeah.
Okay? But I'm gonna kind of show you the thing here. So as it is right now,
Let me see. It's not the same as like developing for operation system like Linux or Windows. doesn't seem as it is. Like, I mean, the platform.
Well, actually, it's going to be worse for VR. Yeah, because when you're writing something for Mac or for Windows, you can still rely on both of them having mouse and keyboard, generic stuff. Where now, when you start thinking about the Rift versus the Vive, all the buttons aren't necessarily identical.
It seems like it's like a. Right. So you got this.
Yeah, you have this on here, but on the Vive, this is a touchpad, so it's not really joysticky.
Oh.
You can do more joystick stuff with this than you could.
Because like 2 triggers, a joystick, and 2 buttons. It's like an
so you have
PlayStation or an Xbox.
So the Vive has the trigger. We'll call those equivalent. The Vive has the grip, but this is a much better grip. Yeah. The Vive's grip is this like thing on the side of the stick. It's really hard to hit. It's weird. This is better by a lot. The Vive does not have buttons. Yeah, those buttons. It has 1 button, but not the. So this guy has 3 buttons that you can use across a thing, and also a 4th button. This guy here is a button. This is a button on here.
Oh yeah. So
yeah. So the Vive is more of like a touchpad because the touchpad's on it. You don't. So when I push this way like this with the Vive, you don't have to push anything. You just touch your finger on the top of that pad, and it's as if you push that thing forward. So it's very sensitive. So if you're designing generically for the 2 of them, it becomes kind of weird. All right. So
I think the Vive is doing the same thing with the Steam controller because they have that.
Yeah. Same touchpad thing. Yep. All right. So I'll go ahead and accept all. So we're just going to bring Steam VR into my project. So this just adds it to the asset folder. And then I'll go back to the scene here, and I'll click on my SDK manager, and notice now that Steam VR lit up, right? So, you start to see the pattern here. You just keep dropping SDKs, and this dude figures out the SDKs you dropped in. Now, if I hit play right now, it's going to, this is the order in which it loads, okay? So it's going to try the Oculus VR first, and it's going to find Oculus. I'm going to trick it, though, here in a second. So, I'm going to do accept all. That's the Steam VR tried to launch, but notice this guy says Oculus VR is what it landed on. I'll go ahead and switch SDKs. I'm going to change it to Steam VR. Steam VR is now launching down here. So now it's driving this thing, but using Steam, not Oculus. Notice how the hands look? They're not hands anymore, right?
Actually, kind of helpful.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, it's different.
Yeah.
You can tell that it's different. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So, you might say that, okay, well, for this this particular guy, it didn't make a difference. But actually, let me just show you real quick the difference. I think I should be able to show it to you on this. All right, so you see how my hand moves here. I can move this controller. You see actually the thing moving?
Yep.
So I can do all that stuff. But now, let me show you something. I'm going to switch it back to Oculus. Now, this is something you can do on the Rift that you cannot do on the Vive. Okay, see how it's a hand again?
Yeah.
See what it's doing with my thumb?
Yeah.
It has sensors on here that detect how
You're
I'm
not actually touching the buttons, are you? Or just...
Nope, not touching them. It detects it detects the position of my index finger here, my thumb, and then when I grip everything. So I can go like that,
so
and then I can let go.
If you're doing a gun trigger, you will actually just...
I think people make some cool video on Facebook.
Yeah. So, make sense? Now, how useful is that? Who knows? It depends what you're writing.
Yeah.
It depends what you're doing, but the Oculus.
And this is all red. Like you can get the value where this. So if you want to like a brush, how thickness you want.
Yeah. I think so. I think so. But the punchline is just that little scenario there. You see the difference between the two, even though at the high level you said, oh, they both worked. Might as well use Steam VR for everything. Make sense? Where there might be certain things that, I mean, in general, you might even say that Steam VR is the generally, I don't want to say this the right way. In general, most people view the Vive as being probably the superior hardware. You know, it's a little bit, the build quality is a little bit better. Everything about it is like maybe a little bit more robust. But there is some stuff that they are doing in the Oculus, some optimization stuff that outperforms the Vive in certain scenarios. And these are things that are more proprietary Oculus things. And you don't get those if you're using the Steam VR plugin. Now, maybe we can say 95% of the time you don't care. You won't miss it. But that 5% of the time you might. Make sense? It's that type of thing. Okay, so far so good. Makes some sense. All right, so now let me go back here and let's look at a different sample thing.
Can we look at the code?
Yeah. So
examples, like, can we see the script?
Yeah, let me.
Like actually the calls of the APIs.
Yeah, so let me show you here. So, well, I'll show you at least at the high level. So we're going to go to under SDK setups. Let's go to Oculus. So this is this whole directory structure they have underneath here for your different SDK setups. But what I'm going to actually do is down here, here's my hands. SDK switcher, where's my hands? Oh, VRTK scripts. So all this stuff is all about just, so this guy right here is all about which SDK to launch, to load. The VRTK scripts, though, this gives you what your play area looks like and then your left and your right controller. So now the left controller has a bunch of events associated with it. So these are the VRTK events associated with this. So we have the VRTK controller event script. So remember earlier I mentioned that we solve problems using doing it the VRTK way. So this guy has a script that gets the touchpad press, the grip press, the trigger press, all these different things for working with the controllers, and then converts it into the correct SDK calls. Let's see. So then we have a VRTK pointer on this one. These are things that they added for this specific scene. So, you know, when you hit that button and it made the pointer go out. So this pointer has a thing for enabling teleport. Hold button to activate. So you saw the pointer when you held the button. So this script, when you attach the VRTK script for it for the pointer, on either the left or the right controller. You see the right controller has that exact same script attached to it. That's the one that draws that pointer. So these are these scripts that are already attached to it. I'll go into the thing here in a few minutes to show it to you. Let me just minimize that guy. Actually, let me close that guy because we won't use it again. So these are all pointer script things. Let me go into VRTK, go into scripts, go into, so let's just look at pointers. Okay. Here's that pointer CS script. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and double click on this guy. It'll open up in Visual Studio. Now, you probably don't want to mess with this.
Oh,
yeah.
This is like default.
Yeah, this is their script. So they've given you a whole bunch of ways to change it. Now, that doesn't mean you can't. It is open source. You pointed it out yourself, right? But you probably don't. You want to let them do all this stuff. So, you know, here is all their code for, you know, their
So,
pointer
like,
script.
If I want to do something to this, like if I want to, instead of teleporting, I want to add some mechanic to my own mechanic. So, look, for example, in our hackathon,
Mm-hmm.
if we're just going to start our project,
Yep.
simple stuff, and we add a script, we just add a script, and how do we call VR? So we talk to, like, just do this.
Yeah, this is so.
Call this script.
You don't call that script. You would do this. We go to left controller. So right up top here, we have the controller events.
Okay.
So this guy fires off events. When you hit the grab button, it fires off a grip pressed event.
Oh, okay. And then
You can write your own scripts that hear that event and can respond to it. Make sense?
Yeah.
That way you don't have to change their scripts, but
Yeah.
you benefit from their event because their event throws that grip pressed event, whether you're clicking the grip on the Oculus controller or you're clicking the grip on the Vive controller. It doesn't matter what kind of controller you have. It'll make that same event call. So you can write your script once and say, if they hit the grip, do this. Make sense? So kind of a cool thing. So here's a bunch of, I go back to scripts here and I go to local motion. So we were talking earlier about they can do a couple of different ways of traveling. So here's basic teleport. Here's button control. So that's kind of like driving it around. I'm not sure the difference with dash teleport. Maybe that's more of a no. I think instead of it being a single line, a fixed line, I think it does this thing that with like dashed lines, like a kind of an arc for your destination where you're teleporting to. Height adjusted teleport. So this guy knows how to tell what its current height is. Move in place. I'm not sure what that guy's going to do. Here's a climber script for probably doing locomotion like this. Room extender, blah, blah, blah. Touchpad control. So that actually could probably be the drive with that, the touchpad or the joystick. Touchpad walking. Wonder why those are disabled. Maybe those are antiquated. They've been replaced by some of the new ones. But in any case, you can kind of look at their different scripts here for doing stuff. For UI, here's a canvas, draggable item, drop zone, UI pointer. So, let me show you probably an example here. So I'm going to switch over here to VRTK, go back into examples. And let's look at the one for grabbing stuff. So here's basic object grab. We'll come back to this one. Let's just see what else there is. Using a door, height adjusted teleport, using a grabbed object, Bezier pointer, terrain teleporting, headset collision, pointer with area collision, using and grabbing multiple objects, snapping objects on grab, touchpad axis control. So that's the joystick. That's the axis when you hit up, down, left, right. Haptic rumble for the controller to have it give some feedback. Touchpad walking. In fact, actually, why don't we launch that one real quick just to see the difference. We're on, yep, it's Oculus. Yeah, so I'm driving here. Ooh. You guys want to mess with this, or you? No, do you care? Do you care, or you're good?
Go ahead. All right, you want to try it? Okay, good.
All right. So, just some different examples. So what's kind of good about this, you say, oh, well, I'm going to do something in VR. They've implemented a whole bunch of stuff in here. So you just have to jump in and say, oh, how did they pull that off? You know, which of their scripts did they use to do this? So if we go to the VRTK script, so really the two things that go into this are the SDK manager, which manages which thing to launch, and then the VRTK scripts. The VRTK scripts deals with what's on the left controller, what's on the right controller. And if we expand the left and right controller, these are, this is an empty game object that has the different settings for the individual touchpad. But let's just look at left controller here. That was the guy I was driving with. So this has the VRTK touchpad control. It's using the headset for direction. So when I turned, that's how it drove. Right. So whatever way I was facing,
Not actually doing this.
no, I did do that, but whatever way I was facing, it reoriented the axis based on that. So that a left turn, when I'm standing facing you, a left turn is going to make me go that way. If I'm standing facing this way, a left turn goes this way. So it reorients your XY based on the way your headset's currently facing. So this is something you got to think about in VR is whatever way your head is currently twisted, you know. In VR, you only have so many measuring points. You have basically the headset and the controls. So he doesn't know where your hips are. It's actually a pretty interesting thing when you look at some of these VR games. And because a lot of the VR games are like those shooters, first-person shooter type things. A very interesting thing is how do they handle where your guns are? It has to estimate where your hips are relative to where the headset is. Make sense? Like, oh, your hips must be, what? 2 feet below your head ish. Makes sense?
So all of people's torso is.
Yeah, so it's got to estimate it. And so I looked at a lot of when we were making inventory systems for some of the VR stuff we've worked on. You end up looking at a lot of different examples of some of these games. We looked at several different games like Robo Recall, and there's another one called Arizona Sunshine, which is another first-person shooter, just to see how they imagined an inventory system and how they imagined holsters for the guns. And it's interesting because you turn your headset and you see what does this do? Because they're having to fake it. And now what are they doing with VR? They're coming up with these little other trackable objects. They're not popular yet, but they're starting to do it for different things. Where now what you can do is you can get this little pod. So with another, just like these hand controls are trackable, I can get a thing and attach it to like a belt. Now it knows where my waist is. Right? That's the line for my waist. You can do it for your feet, your shoes. You can put a marker in the middle of the room for something that's maybe in your space that you're you want to track down. So there's other trackable objects now in space if you want to use those, and it's going to apply to certain types of problems.
What if it had a camera in the front, like was the Oculus the one had
the Vive has
the Vive? Okay. Would it just kind of take an image with a 3D model? Oh, that will take forever to process it, and then just
the camera on the Vive is not a full, but it can do full color. They have a thing where you can hold it up and it actually gives you like a video on the stick just to kind of look to see what's going on around you. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't replace your eyes with the world, because it actually creates a weird delay, and it ends up being very disorienting.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because there's a weird video delay. Yeah.
What I was thinking was like the AI right now when Google does that image recognition for figure out what is this. So it'll almost become the actual mixed reality, not this.
Right. Let's see. Opacity, interacting with Unity UI, teleporting in nav mesh, custom controller, headset gaze pointer. Okay, this one could be actually kind of interesting. So if you want to point at stuff instead of using the controls themselves, there's a thing in VR called Gaze, G-A-Z-E. So you stare at something for a period of time in order to...
That's what the cardboard had.
Yeah, because when you don't have hand controls, that's like your only... What does it want me to stare at? What does it want me to gaze? Oh, is that guy? I'm just going to stare at that for a second. Is he going to point at him? All right, so this is controlling.
Wait, can't you?
Oh, okay, there we go. Just like teleporting, but instead of finding a place, you look at the place. So you still hold that button, and I just look where I want to go. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's better or worse or just different, I guess.
Yeah, I think you can switch from you pressing a button to a timer. Wait.
Oh, so that gave me like a laser thing. Hold on.
So use the other controller, man.
Who knows?
It is teleporting the actual ball. Is go up the blue. Okay, can you climb up? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that will teleport me wherever he's currently pointing. I can tell you one thing, that is not a good control.
Confusing.
Yeah, I mean that's where it worked. Wherever that guy was pointing, it would teleport me there. But that wasn't a. It wasn't good. That is not an improved mode of transportation. It was interesting though. The gaze for teleporting was not bad. Do you want to try the gaze one, Bert? That was the right controller. The right controller was the.
Are they like actually right, or just when I grab them on my right hand?
Well, these fit in your hand certain ways. That's the right.
Okay.
Yeah, so you just look where you want to go, and when it's green, you can go there.
All right. How do you adjust the straps?
Oh, because you got too much hair. It's the problem. You got a cutter on you, just cut his hair off.
No.
Let's see. You want it looser, right?
No, tighter.
Oh, tighter.
All right.
You do something this way. How's that? Is that better?
Yep.
You gonna try this, Charlie?
Yeah.
So when it's green and you press the button, you go there.
Yeah, with the right controller. So you press the button like you were teleporting before.
Yeah.
And that gives you the box. Then you just look where you want it to go.
It's kind of intuitive, or catch on. Do you have any actual games installed?
Huh?
Do you have any?
I don't know if I do on here or not. But we'll have some games for the hackathon. I'll have something set up for blowing off steam for a little bit. Trapped?
Oh, stay pressing on. So you can see what.
think this is actually a quicker way of
Yeah, instead of the
yeah. Instead of what?
teleporting. Looking into it.
All right. So you can kind of see how one of the things that we need to really consider is locomotion, how to move around in virtual space. Because even if you have room scale, you can only move so much. Obviously, we have a little tiny space up here, so I could move kind of a foot or two towards the ball earlier. But even in a big space, if you had 15 feet by 15 feet, you're still limited on how much you can move. It allows you to kind of teleport into the ballpark, and then you can move around. So it is a limiting type thing. Let's just look at the other things that are in here real quick before I show you some control stuff. Okay, radial touchpad menu. Oh, actually, this is kind of a cool one. So you can kind of look at this and get all sorts of ideas for things you might put into your VR game. All right, so place thumb on. Yeah, so see this? When I touch this, it pops this guy up, and then I can choose the menu. Oh, then I can go over to this cube. Barely made it. So this cube has his own radial menu attached to it. See that?
Yeah.
So just some interesting things you could consider.
So the object itself has its own object.
Yeah, you go up to that, and that game object has a script attached to it. I'll show you. Let's say that you were messing around with that and you said, oh, I have a use for that in my game. All right, so let's explore that a little bit. So here's that world object, that cube. And inside of that, we have our cube. And so this cube has the VRTK interactable object script attached to it. Okay. And then he has a radial menu attached to that. And then a UI for that radial menu. So the radial menu is off initially. Try to see if it describes how it pulls that off. Well, that's actually that guy. Here's that guy. That's our cube. That's the cube that has the menu attached to it. I don't really see where it actually pops up that radial menu. So there's not much to the radial menu there. That's all scalar stuff. Oh, here's the controller. So it's actually on the actual panel. So that thing's implemented as a panel that we're looking at. And it has the scroller radial menu controller script on it. So in any case, if you were interested in that kind of stuff, you can pull it off. Let's see what other things are in here. Oh, here's that dash teleport. Let's just see what that guy ended up being. My guess is it's going to show dash lines for where I'm going, and I'm thinking it's going to be like a little arc.
I don't think it will just zoom you into.
See, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be that.
That's a dash.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. That is kind of zoomy.
Well, no. So this kind of shows you like a landing zone. Instead of pointing like a straight line, this gives you like an arc. See how I can lift it up?
Oh, okay. Will it like transfer you through that arc? Or?
No. This is just an alternative like pointer for teleporting. So instead of just a line that went there, this gives me like a little bit different feel where I can try to tell.
Is it for like maybe throwing on an object? That's
well, but I think it would also let me like get over a wall. So, for instance, am I going to be able to get over it? Not really.
Oh, you went on top of it. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that actually might have been hard to do with a straight line.
Oh, yeah. Now I got it.
Because it's a bend to get there.
You see golf played in virtual reality? So you actually play golf and stuff?
Yeah, but it doesn't play. I mean, it doesn't work out that well. There are some games that try to bring golf into VR, but the issue is that fine, you can give yourself a virtual reality look at a course, but what about actually swinging? Yeah, I mean, it's not right. It doesn't translate well. You got to have a real club in your hand. Now, what would be cool is, because I have a simulator at home for golf, where I hit a real ball into a net, but I have a simulator that hooks into a computer and it shows me how the ball would fly and things like that. Yeah. So one thing that would be kind of cool is putting on like maybe a mobile VR headset so I didn't have cables attached to it, and it talked to my it talked to the headset, or I'm sorry, the simulator piece, the thing that measures the ball. So that instead of having to look up at a computer screen, so I hit it into the net here, and then I look up at this computer screen to see where it went. And it's convenient for me. I'm left-handed, so basically a right-handed person can't use my setup. It's in my garage. It's made just for me. But point is that it's not a big deal for me. I usually have my simulator running on the computer. I watch Netflix on a big screen TV out there, so it's not a problem. Well, my current setup is pretty good, but I could see something like that working in VR, where it was you viewed where the ball went in the headset, but you still had to hit it with a real club. Yeah. All right. Okay, so let's just go back up here. I want to do the basic grab. So here's basic object grabbing. So now we'll move away from moving around and think about touching things. So I'll go ahead and start this. So it has just a bunch of game objects here on the screen. Here, let me just do this here real quick. I'll do maximize on play. So when I hit this, it'll go full screen.
Uncheck Steam on the doesn't load in the
Well, there is no unchecking it.
Oh, really?
The real question is why is it still launching? I mean, I guess I can do this. For the sake of this, what we're doing here, I can go ahead and delete.
Yeah, we're not using the why.
Yes, but you'd still want it in there in your project.
Oh, if I am actually launching it.
Correct. All right, so now I need to leave this guy and then come back in. 1 second. I think we just need to relaunch Unity because it loaded the it already preloaded that the Steam stuff. Okay, I'm going to say maximize on play.
There's more folders than that.
No, there shouldn't be. Oh, it's possible. Here, let me actually try something here. It's possible that let's do basic teleport. Did this guy need? It's the same issue. I was going to think it was possible that it needed to have the other thing. That maybe teleport didn't require Steam, but this one did. So this guy seems to be, he doesn't want to give up the fact that Steam is there. So we'll just re-import it. Move on with life. This is the way it should be anyways. We should have both of them in there. And once you build a project, you wouldn't have this issue anymore.
Yeah, because it's buggy. Every time you're going to pop up with this thing.
Let's see. Let me go ahead and quit Steam VR. Let's cancel that. So let's at least make
When we set up this software, should we download and input models?
Yeah, and actually, what I'm going to probably do is I'm going to give a blank starting scene for everybody, so they already have like everything in it for a starting point.
Okay.
That way, they don't have to do a bunch of downloading and things like that. So I'll just I'll put it on a jump drive for each team. Like here's a starting scene that has all your crap in it. Yeah, I really wish that there was a way to keep that Steam VR thing from popping up. Because it is annoying, you're right. All right, so now I'm back to this. And let me just quickly click on the SDK manager. So this allows me to choose the order in which they're showing up.
I pick Steam and click none, so it doesn't have a logo. It doesn't look for Steam.
Oh, here, I actually think I can fix this. Let's go back here. Go to assets. I'm going to take out Steam VR again. I can always re-import it if this doesn't work. Then I'll click on this guy. Notice that it still says Steam VR there.
Yeah.
I want it to.
I think there's another file.
I don't.
It dropped into the.
I don't think so.
Or two.
I don't think so. Let's just go to a different scene here. Then we'll grab some objects. Yeah, see, it's still in there. It still thinks Steam VR is. Yeah, I don't know. So we'll import it and just live with it. Like I said, it's what we want anyways. Okay. So now let me go to the basic grab. And we'll launch this guy. Okay. Yeah, see, it would have been pretty nice of them if they would have given us a teleport thing built into this. So I'm just using the grip thing here. When I let go of it, it drops. So I'm squeezing here. Let's see, where's Charlie? Right there. I'm pretty sure I got you.
No.
Did you feel that?
Yeah.
That would have been really funny if I would have leaned over or slammed right into the desk here. Yeah, so it's only letting me go so far. But one thing I can do, this will be a good augmentation thing here. Let's go ahead and here's the VRTK scripts. Here's left controller. We have the touch. We have the grab. So let me add something. VRTK basic teleport. Now I think if we do this, it's I don't think we'll get a line now, but I think it will teleport. And I added that, I think, to the left hand.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to be doing with the hackathon.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I don't have I need to add more. This is not just a teleport script. So let me go in here. So I'm gonna, can I copy this? I can't. Let's go into basic teleport. And I'm gonna go into the left controller. So this guy has, so he had to get the controller events. He has a pointer. So he has a pointer renderer. He has a pointer. And the play area itself had the basic teleport. Okay, so he's teaching the play area to have the basic teleport. And then the left controller has the events, the pointer, and the pointer renderer. As opposed to over here, this is basic object grabbing. And here's our left controller. So this has the same controller events thing. He has the interact touch, interact grab on both of the hands. And then what's in this example screens? That's just the scene changer. So there's our world objects. So actually what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just steal those objects and put it into our other world because we already have teleporting working. So we're just add interactive touch, interact grab to both hands. So I'm going to right click here. I'm going to copy. So I'll have that little workbench with the crap on it. Then we'll go into our basic teleport where we can already teleport around. And I'll go ahead and I'll paste this guy in here. So there's my objects that I can grab. Here's my VRTK script. So we'll add some stuff to my hands. I'm going to actually select the right and the left hand. I'll do add component. And then we have interact touch and interact grab. So there's interact touch. Here's interact grab. So hold on, it looks like grab is on there twice. All right, so there's interact touch, and here's interact grab. All right, so let's go ahead and play this. So now we should be able to teleport over to that table. Here we go. Perfect.
I hit my head.
Yeah, I got you. Those are the touch thing. So it's noticing that I'm touching it. I can also grab it.
Are you actually gripping?
Yep.
Hitting the.
So I do this. So I reach down. Oh, that one's not grabbable. Get myself to a safe bend over area. Oh, it doesn't adjust the height.
You probably need a reset key for the control.
Aha, back. Huh? What do you mean how to do that?
What did you set it without looking?
I can see.
Play again.
Hold up another number of fingers. 2 fingers.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little tiny spot here. You can. I told you I got new contacts. I can see right through this. I mean, I see 9 dimensions now. Yeah, so to grip, I'm hitting that grip button there. So I'm reaching down, nothing, but now grip, and it's attached to me. Still holding the grip. As soon as I let go of the grip, it drops. You guys want to try this?
I got a Unity to run on Linux.
Good.
I keep my Linux as the development stuff, and Windows for the.
If you want to do VR stuff, install Windows.
Yeah.
Trust me. I'm not a Windows user.
Yeah,
So,
you're a Mac user.
Yeah.
Right?
So
I see this is a different laptop than you use. Like, yeah.
this has a 1070 in it. This is my VR, my game programming laptop.
Really?
Yeah. So you've seen me in class. That's why I have to plug it in class. This thing only gets about an hour max of battery life.
That's mine have 940 MX, which is just 2 gig of backup. It's not that.
Yeah, this is and it's a full desktop 1070.
Oh yeah, so I was wondering.
Yeah. So it's not even a mobile 1070. It's no battery life. This is just a mobile workstation. That's what it is.
No, I paid like 1,200 for this.
Yeah. I think that was a couple grand, 2,000 or so.
Yeah.
Which I mean has almost an 18-inch screen. So it's a nice machine.
I mean, I really cannot play any decent video games, and I bought it just last year.
Yeah. Well, it's not made for gaming.
Well, I thought because NVIDIA, but I do a lot of Coda thing, Linux.
Yeah.
So
Here, I'll restart this for you so you have new stuff to grab.
So the blue one is not grabbable?
The base wasn't.
wait, where's on the way.
There's a blue bar that I try to grab.
No, it should be grabbable. I think it was the base of the disc thing that was not. Actually, this is the first time that they had the contacts, and I'm putting the helmet on and off a lot. Because with glasses, as soon as you take it off, your glasses are all smushed and stuff like that. So you got, face grease all over it. You can't see anything.
You can grab the blue ball.
Yeah, you can grab that blue ball. Grip.
It doesn't grab.
You got to grip, not the trigger, the grip. Do the red square first. Make sure you know how to do it.
Oh,
Grip. Grip, not trigger. Grip.
wait. Oh, that.
Middle finger.
Right here.
Yeah, there you go. Now let go of the grip, and it'll drop. Now grab that blue ball.
It's not. Grab. Why? This one, right?
Yeah. So maybe it's not grabbable. That's what he was saying. But it moved. Grab the box now. Can you hit it? Oh, it's you can hit it with other ones.
Oh, that's cool.
I was trying to. I'm really having a hard time with stupid hair. Okay, this is not the actual table. I was gonna put that.
I can bring a scissors.
No, hey, we'll do this at the hackathon. I'll bring in my my hair cutting stuff. I'll
My
give you this.
father, last time I went back home, he was like, "All right, let's go."
I'll give you the same haircut I have. You don't want this haircut?
No, man, my head is like all dented and stuff. It's like the moon.
So people get used to it.
My girlfriend, I cut my hair a little bit. My girlfriend almost like cried.
I was like crying.
Yeah, she is the one who made me.
Oh, I guess that's I mean, you're young. I've been married for almost as long
I'm
as you.
26 years old.
Yeah.
I'm not that.
I've been married for almost as long as you're alive. So that whole romance thing's out the window at this point.
Romance works like that.
I only get yelled when I do the haircut because I just buzz it all off, right? My wife just yells at me because she has to clean up.
Oh,
I clean up the hair.
come on, you don't clean up.
No, I do, but not to her standards.
Oh.
You know, like she'll find one little piece somewhere. It's like, oh, you didn't clean this.
I hate her.
So I try to clean it up, but not at her standards. Okay, so pretty cool stuff. So you can kind of see pretty quickly, like we just kind of merged two scenes together, right, to give us some abilities.
Yeah, so you brought something from another script or from another scene.
Yep, and then we just added a few more scripts here to the left and right controllers.
So just kind of
for grabbing.
Yeah.
But we could have gone the other direction, but it would have taken a little bit longer to add to our play area, because what you do is you add to your play area a basic teleport, which is under the VRTK scripts, and then the controllers then know how to use that in conjunction with the pointer. Now, one thing I'd be interested in is how does that happen with the dash teleport? Let's see what that script looks like for dash teleport, and then I'll give a we're in dash teleport now, right? So here's our play area. So that should have, it has body physics in it, and then it has dash teleport. And then the left controller has grab, pointer. Oh, there's the Bezier pointer. Yeah, so it's even. So I was hoping it would have like better things, like easier to implement. But you have to put the Bezier pointer gives you the arc.
Oh.
Yeah, so you have to do a bunch of pointer stuff, which isn't a big deal. But then you have to get like the color of the pointer and that kind of stuff. So it's probably easier to grab the base VR and drop it into or grab a base VR project and drop that in and build around that.
Yeah.
So that you have teleportation. And then the grabbable stuff was just adding one script or two scripts, the touch and the grab. But if you just want to grab, just add that one script to it and move on. Okay, so then let's just kind of wrap up by just doing a little couple minutes of just how 3D objects work in this guy. So I'm going to go ahead and let's just go into our basic teleport scene. Okay, so we're back here. Now, I'm going to look from above. So what this guy is, so this base here is a floor, which is just going to be, actually they have it implemented as a cube. So if I look at it from the side here, see how it has some width to it? So that's a cube, but the way they've actually done this, let me just... All right, this is good enough for you. All right, so I'm looking down on the scene here. So if I want to put something else in there, so I'm going to go ahead and right click. I'm going to do 3D objects. So this is over here. This whole thing is my scene hierarchy. This is the stuff that's in my scene. So I'm not putting this inside of any of these other things. I'm just going to right click. I'm going to do a new 3D object. I'm going to do a, let's do a, just because we don't have one on there yet, let's do a cylinder. All right, so here's my new cylinder that's on the scene here. And I'm gonna just look at it from the side. So this guy looks like this. I can move him around. All right, and let's say I want that guy to be a different color. Okay, so here's my default material. Now, I need to give myself a new material for that guy. So do I have some? Well, I'll come in here, I'll right click, I'll do create material.
And do your assets?
Yeah, I just put it somewhere in my assets and maybe make this guy pink, or is that purple, or whatever that is. Is that pink? That's pink. All right, so there's my material for that guy, and then I'll just drag that material onto that dude. And if I click on my cylinder, you'll see that this guy now has that material attached to it. Okay, so I have a pink cylinder, so if I do nothing else, I just hit play. Now I have something new that's in my my scene, just a 3D primitive. Right there. There's my pink sphere. Or pink cylinder, rather. All right. Now, if I want to start building things, so if we're just kind of thinking about this, let's say you want to build kind of a room to kind of walk underneath. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and let's take this cylinder. We'll move it down here. I'm going to make a copy of that guy. We'll paste it. Paste it again. Let's say that's good enough. So then we'll take all 3 of those cylinders. We'll copy those. We'll paste them again. Drag it over here. And let's look at this from Z. Let's look at it from X. All right, so we can see that those guys are kind of laying on the, we have like pillars, right? 6 pillars. Now let's go ahead. I'm going to really wanted to look at it on. Whatever. All right, so there's that. Now I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put like a roof. Okay. And hopefully my thing's tall enough. So I'm going to now create a 3D object, and let's make this guy a. I'm going to make it just a plane. I don't need it to be thick or anything. So a plane is just going to be a thin, flat sheet, just because there isn't another one in here. All right, and I'm going to click up here. This allows me to resize things. So this guy right here is the size. So I'm going to kind of build it so it's the right size for those things. I'm going to move it some now. Okay. But now, right now, it's sitting, if I go to the x-axis, it's sitting in the middle of those guys, right? Okay, so now if I go Y, I'm looking down on it again. So notice now that it's above those guys. So if I go in here and I look around, we should see that that plane is now floating above those things. We actually can't even see that.
Cast in the shadow.
Yeah, that's true. It's cast in the shadow, but the plane itself doesn't actually have a. Planes are only one-sided, so if I want this, the better way to do this for us to see it would be to do it as a cube. So.
Can you convert an object to an object, or is it better off?
Actually, I can do this. I can take this plane.
Yeah. I'll give it a top.
Yeah. Let's see if now the bottom of it is pink, now that I put a material on it. Otherwise, the bottom of it doesn't have a renderer. No. And no, as far as I know, you cannot convert an object. So let's dump our plane. So I'll create a cube. There's my cube. We'll go ahead and move this guy here to the middle. We'll resize them. So I'll stretch them out.
We'll be just. You don't have to get up.
Okay. All right, let's move this in position. All right, we'll make it pink as well. Now, right now, it's laying right on the side there. So, yeah, this actually gives me a little more wiggle room too, right? Because I don't have to get it to fit perfectly. So now if I hit play.
There you go.
Go ahead and teleport underneath there. See, I built you a house.
I see. They're actually I mean, we did not put them as a rigid body, right?
Correct. Yeah. They're just visible. Yeah, my guess is we need to do, so right now he's saying he could teleport into them. So what I can do then is I can click on all my cylinders.
Sorry.
And the cube. And I'm going to go ahead and add what's called a box collider to that guy. And then I'll also, actually that should be enough.
Yeah, I don't think that plan needs to be actually.
Yeah, he just needs a box collider. So now that he has a box collider, you should not be able to teleport into them. Sorry, hold on. Okay. You can get right up next to it, but you should not be able to have inside of it be a landing zone.
That is like a sudden movement when I move my hand.
So try to teleport like up, like onto one. Does that put you inside of it?
Let's see. No, actually, I'm not. You see the?
Yeah. Where before you were inside of it, right?
Yeah. My hand does go inside.
Yeah. There's nothing you can do about that. Yeah, because that's just tracked. But you have no way of getting onto the roof, though.
Let's see. Yeah, I think I'm locked on the ground.
Can you get onto the top of one of those red walls?
No.
Yeah, you're on the red wall, right?
I am moving the inside of them. Or am I?
Oh, you're not above it.
No, I think.
I gotcha. Yeah, you might be locked on the ground in this scene.
There is no actually.
Okay. So, just as a quick thing we could say, let's say I wanted to have for the roof here. So here's my roof, this cube. Let's say that I wanted to, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a C# script. So this is just in my assets, and we're going to call this guy the root script for no good reason. Just it's the roof script. So I'll go ahead and click on my cube. I'll scroll down. I'm going to do add component. And notice it when I typed in roof, it found the roof script. So I've connected this roof script to that guy. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to double click on the script. So that's going to open up. So this is how you program things and attach them to objects. We added the script component to this guy. And so the important things here are this function right here gets called one time when that thing is first born. And then update gets called every single frame. Every single time the screen updates. So might be 100 frames a second or something like that. That guy will get called update. There's also another one called fixed update. So fixed update gets called 60 times a second to maintain 60 frames a second. So in any case, whatever you put in update gets repeated. Whatever you put in start doesn't. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll just do a print roof created. And we'll see that guy only shows up one time. And then we'll go ahead and we'll do, I'll do a private void, just call it kill. And there's the language here is C#, but you notice it looks pretty similar to Java. All right, so private void kill, and we'll go ahead and just say this dot, actually we're gonna call the destroy this dot game object. So This is saying the game object associated with the dude that this script is attached to. That's what this says. I want to destroy that game object. That's what kill does. And then what I'll do here is I'll say invoke. I had a lowercase k. Kill. And let's do it in 5 seconds. All right, so upon start, we'll say roof created. It'll print out to the console. And then in 5 seconds, we'll call the kill function, which should make the roof disappear. All right, so within 5 seconds, you need to make sure you look at the roof. Okay. You ready? So go ahead and save this.
You don't get any errors with no compiling.
All right, we're going in.
Yep, see it.
All right, so he's looking at the roof, and after...
Oh,
That's fine. I just had it okay.
All right. It's gone. My roof is gone.
Cool. Now, if you really wanted to do something interesting here, what you could do, just to kind of see the power of the physics engine, I can go ahead and make the cube. This would be kind of fun to do real quick, just as our finishing touch. I'll make that guy a rigid body. I'll make all of these cylinders also rigid bodies, but I'm going to turn off the gravity for them, but I'll make them kinematic, which means things can hook onto them. For the cube, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that above those guys and let them land on top of the cubes. So actually, if you want to look over at those guys, we'll put it up there. So that guy has gravity, and they all have box colliders, and they're all rigid bodies. So now the roof should land on that guy. Okay. And now what we can do is we can go ahead and attach a script to these bottom things, and we'll make them disappear after 5 seconds. So you'll actually see the roof. Actually, why don't we just make the left ones fall off? So then the roof will go like this. You'll see the physics of it. So we'll take, so I'm going to take this roof script. And so that happens after 5 seconds. So what I'm going to do then, even though it's called roof script, it actually, we don't want it attached to the roof anymore. So I'll go to my cube. I'll go ahead and remove this roof script, right click, remove component. But I'm going to go ahead and put it on all 3 of these guys. So those 3 things will disappear after 5 seconds, which should then make the roof fall over to the side.
Because of gravity?
Yeah. So originally the roof lands on it and is all even. Then after 5 seconds, the left one should disappear. Cool? So that's the beauty of using a game engine. It does all that physics and stuff for you. All right, makes sense? So at least a reasonable crash course into Unity. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than what we just showed, but that gives you the basics.
Yeah, go online if you. There's a lot of people.
Well, but at the very least, you feel like whatever team you're on now for the hackathon, you kind of know what they're going to be doing, right? So, and then through 12 hours of working with it, you should have a fighting chance, let's say. All right, so let's stop this.